Ellie was halfway through her A-levels. She started dating Thomas Griffiths. He was her first boyfriend. About a couple of months into the relationship, she started noticing some traits that were odd. As time went on, she felt she wanted to end the relationship. Her friends described it as suffocating. He came to our house where he knew she was home alone revising, and he strangled her first, and then he picked up a knife and he stabbed her 13 times in the neck, and the sentence for that was 12.5 years. That's the justice system when it comes to violence against women and girls.
Poppy and Joe Atkinson had been a couple for over 3 years. In the October, she decided that she just didn't want to stay in the relationship anymore and called an end to it. She was going to leave on the 17th of December. She'd got a flat to move into. But on the 14th, on the Friday night just before that, he came back from his Christmas party. She was in bed, asleep, and he went to the kitchen. He chose a knife. He chose the knife for a specific intent. He didn't choose a knife to cut bread, you know, he chose it, and this is really important, that there is an element of premeditation, knowing what they're doing. He chose the knife. He went back into Poppy's bedroom and he began his attack then. There were 23 stab wounds, one in her skull and all around her neck and things, 49 knife wounds, 100 injuries altogether. He was jailed for 16 years and 2 months.
And my understanding is that if in both these horrific cases they had taken a knife from somewhere, gone out into the street or into a park and murdered someone, the minimum starting point for their sentence would be 25 years.
Absolutely. You could stab somebody once in the park, but that straight away, because of taking the weapon to the scene, is seen as more serious than a brutal murder in the home.
And we think the idea about that was about premeditation, or if you're carrying a weapon around. But
the logic is there is intent there. There is intent to kill. But you are saying, in the cases of your daughters, there was intent.
There was intent. Of course there was. And you will never know what that person was thinking when they were approaching the houses in our instance. They're never going to say, yes, I was thinking about it. That's never going to happen.
At the moment, there's a huge disparity between sentencing of those murders that take place in the street as opposed to murders that take place in the home. There's an immediate 10-year difference in starting point of sentencing, and we're just looking to close that gap, because it's immoral to treat women, who are generally the ones who are murdered in the home, to treat them as valued less.
Now, the government is introducing longer sentences that will include overkill as an aggravating factor, and just to define overkill, it is the use of excessive or gratuitous violence beyond that necessary to kill, which happened in your daughter's cases. Dominic Raab, the Justice Secretary, says that is going to add about 2 years to sentences. Well, you're shaking your head.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. If that's all he really thinks, that these lives are worth, and what they've gone through, and the trauma and the absolute horrific murders that take place in the home.
I can't tell you how upsetting it was 2 weeks ago to have sight of that letter that Dominic Raab wrote to his colleagues, where he said, and for overkill we're adding 2 years. I mean, that just broke me. I just thought he should go and visit some young women in the morgue and see their injuries, and then tell me that that's just worth 2 years. The problem with the law at the moment, it's just written with violence on the street in mind, and nobody has given a second thought, the judges and barristers and sentencing counsel, to domestic homicides and the horrific nature of them.
Although it is for all murders, it is possible for judges to give life sentences, and the MOJ reminds us of that.
We've spoken to a few judges and lawyers, and they like a framework. They will stick within that framework. None of them want to sort of put their head above the parapet and go, okay, no, actually, I think this. Because what will happen is there will probably be an appeal then, and then because it doesn't fall in line with all the others, the appeal would win and it would go down again. So the Ministry of Justice are going, the judges can do that. The judges are going, yes, okay, but we don't want to do that because we're sticking to the guidelines. So actually the guidelines have to change.
It's difficult to even get your head round, or even you know, to work out how you have coped at the loss of your daughters. Ellie was 17, she's on the cusp of adulthood, you've got her through primary school, you've almost got her through secondary school. Poppy's, you know, 24 and thriving and independent, and both are taken from you just like that. How do you cope with that?
Perhaps the campaigning gives us a purpose to fight for change, because as it stands it's so immorally wrong. But every day is a struggle, you know, there's no denying it. Every day you can have tears, a memory, a thought, a piece of music playing. And you know, you're empty inside. You know, you often think, oh, I wonder what it would be like if Ellie was coming home for Easter, for example, from university just a few weeks ago. And that's gone.
It takes a huge part of you away. It's really, really tough. And you know, I say goodnight to a photograph every night. This is my life, and I can't see that changing, but I also can't see very far ahead. You just can't see very far ahead.
What our audience may not know is that both of you went to the morgues to see your daughters. I asked if you wanted to talk about this, and you said that you did because you want people to know what it is like. What do you want to say to our audience about that?
We had to go and see Ellie in the morgue. They warned us before we saw her that they had covered up her injuries. She had plasters on her face so that we couldn't see the stab wounds, and she had bandages around her neck and on her chest area so that we couldn't see the extent of the forensic attack that she had gone through.
Yeah, we went several times to see Poppy. Her injuries weren't covered up, partly because they didn't think that we would be going in to see her. They didn't want us to go in and see her, but our family liaison officer discussed it with us, and we decided that we would. So we saw all of the injuries, and in her head I just kept thinking she was breathing. And of course she wasn't.
I am so sorry. I am so sorry. Can I ask you finally about your friendship, your bond? How would you describe it? How has it helped each of you?
I don't think, I certainly couldn't have done the campaign on my own. I wouldn't have got this far. We have an absolutely unique relationship. We text most days. There's a text or something, you know, and we say anything to each other, and we know we can get away with saying anything to each other. So
things that would be completely shocking to other people have become our norm. You know, horrific stabbings, and you know, and I could have never have imagined years ago that this would be part of my normal everyday language. But sadly it is, and that's what we have to live with.
Thank you both very much for talking to Newsnight. Julie, thank you. Carole, thank you very much
for listening.
Thank you.